Hi folks, in this tutorial we'll be looking at painting purity seals for your Imperial factions for Warhammer 40,000. So without any further ado, let's cue the music. To start out, we're going to give the wax of this purity seal a base coat using Screamer Pink from Games Workshop. I've thinned this down with a little bit of water and you should get a nice smooth coverage with two thin coats. Once the Screamer Pink has dried, I will then be coming in with Warlord Purple from Vallejo Game Colour. And with this, I'll be picking out the ridge edges of the purity seal and applying a dot in the centre, and we're going to be looking to cover most of the Screamer Pink from our previous coat, leaving the Screamer Pink just in the shadowed areas of the purity seal's wax. Next, I'll be coming in with some pink horror to pick out the ridges of the wax, and I'll be painting most of the upper surface and a little bit in the middle of the bottom ridge of the wax, and I'll be applying a very small dot in the centre of the wax, and this is to show where the light would hit on the wax. A final optional step for the wax is to come in with a tiny bit of Empress Children and just do a few dots of this colour on little bits of the ridges. This is just to show an extreme highlight of pink onto the wax. Now that the wax of the purity seal has dried, we can now work on the parchment. I'm coming in here with a base coat of English uniform from Vallejo model colour. Now this is a very similar paint in tone to Steel Legion Drab from Games Workshop. And I recommend that you do a couple of thin coats to ensure a smooth coverage of this paint. With the base coat dried, I have now made a mixture of the English uniform and Karak stone from Games Workshop. I've done this about a 50-50 mix, and I am applying this over most of the parchment area of the purity seal, leaving the English uniform in the recesses. With the mix dried, I am now coming in with pure Karak stone, and with this I am picking out the edges and most of the flat areas on the parchment paper. I'm looking to cover about half to 3/4 of the area covered by the previous mix. As a final optional step, I'm using some Screaming Skull here to pick out the corners and the edges of the parchment paper. The last step on this purity seal is to add the impression of text. And what I'm doing for this is taking some heavily thinned down corvus black from Games Workshop, which is a very, very dark grey. It always works better when you're doing the text impression if you don't use a pure black, as the pure black can look very stark onto the parchment colours that we've done previously. And with this, I'm making very small lines and dots with the tip of a very fine brush with the thinned paint to give the impression of text. And the trick with this is just to take your time, and if the mark is very faint, that's alright, leave it to dry and come back in to touch it up with another coat. Patience is the key to this rather than trying to get it right first time, especially if you're new to doing very small markings like this. And with that, this purity seal is now complete. I hope that this tutorial has given you the confidence to go try it on your own miniatures. If you like this tutorial, why not consider subscribing to the channel? It's free of charge and you'll get notified in your feed of further tutorials just like this one. See you next time, folks.